very much, everybody, for coming here this morning. It's great to have you all here. My name's Alastair Johnson. That's my title there. It's quite a long one, Development Athlete and Coach Manager. So my sort of main role is supporting coaches and athletes on national teams, national camps, supporting coaches with all the stuff that they do on a daily basis, trying to help your kids improving, get past and so on. Good morning.
Good morning, sorry I'm late. All good. We just started.
My voice is a bit croaky this morning, and I think it's because of the late nights I've been having with the sessions and then doing some more work afterwards. So it's a bit croaky. It's not my normal voice, I'm afraid. So if you have any questions during the presentation, don't wait to the end. Just shout them out. Put your hand up. It's always good to just maybe go for the site, tangent, and make sure that we answer any queries you might have. Okay, so welcome and well done. So thanks for being here. So in terms of the high performance team, that's the list of people we've got on the team. So there's Guy Francis, who's my colleague. He operates really at a high level than me, so really what we call the targeted and senior athletes. So people are looking to make the Olympic team, World Champs team, World University Games. It's those sort of senior athletes he kind of is responsible for. I sort of fit underneath them in terms of the national age program athletes. So that's females 13 to 17, males 14 to 18. Having said that, we do a lot of crossover, so we're forever helping and checks and balances with each other. Simon and Cameron work in the para part. So Simon is equivalent of Gary, and Cameron, you may have seen racing here this week. It operates in that sort of development space. So my equivalent. We couldn't be as good as we are without Amanda's support and professional input. So it's great to have Amanda with us. So it's a fairly small team. So in terms of the pathway, that first bit up there, that's a simplistic way of presenting it. So athletes are basically in clubs. As they improve, they'll compete at regional level. They'll go on to a zonal level like Aqua Knights, national champs, international. So it's a very simple process. So what are the national programs? So I've just listed the para ones. So they've got two programs. One's for their younger athletes, so there's 14 years and over. Even though there's no real ceiling of age, there's a focus there on very young athletes, and they've got a separate group targeting Paris 2024, which is obviously the Paralympics after Tokyo. The national age program, like I said before, it's those ranges of ages. So the females are 1 year younger than the males. The senior development and the type of program is females 14 and above, males 15 and over. But they've got to be fast enough to be on that senior targeted program. So really it's based on their performances. So that's it in a sort of a nutshell in terms of different programs. So have you all seen the I call it the chessboard, because there's a lot of numbers, a lot of columns. But so just a quick hands up, who's seen? Okay, pretty much everybody. So that's on the Swimming New Zealand website. If you go to the website, I think it's high performance. Click on that, athletes, and I think there'll be a drop down for athlete pathways.
Yeah.
If you go there, it's the time standards. Yeah. From memory, I think there's 4 documents there. That'll be the second one. And then there's 2 more with the para. The first document I'll come on to in a minute. So how does your child get onto the national age programme? They need to do a time. I know it's a bit blurry, but these are all times. So if I work from right to left, so if I just pick this one here, this is the girl, so this is girls 13 years, and there's 3 times, so a bronze time, a silver time, and a gold time. The bronze time is the slowest of those 3. Yeah? And then we go to 14 years, the times are different, but again it's a bronze, silver, gold approach. Yeah? So that goes from 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 for the girls, and then over here we've got the 18 to 20 for girls, 19 to 21 for the lads, and there's 2 times in there, and then the far left, the green times are basically the times the athletes need to hit if they want to go. So Olympic Games, or they want to get some funding, because we, in partnership with Hatful Sport NZ, there's the funding pots that we can support athletes with. So they need to achieve one of those times in order to get onto the programme.
And they are long course times, correct?
Sorry?
They are long course times?
Correct, yes.
So is there a short course time equivalent?
There's no short course. So is what your question, short course?
Yes.
Yeah. No, it's all long course times. I'll explain a little bit more later, but we've changed how we operate.
That's
Normally
kind of
what happens is there's one entry point and that's it for the year. And that kind of favours athletes of a particular age. So what we've tried to do, or what we've implemented is 3 entry points across the year. So at National Short Course, we can take more athletes onto the programme, but we won't publish those times. We just want to, well, it's a guide for us. Some of it depends on how many spaces we've got, how well the athlete's been tracking across the season. But we've got times that we will refer to, but it's pretty much long course because the international meets tend to be long course. The only short course event for these kind of athletes is Aussie State teams, which is an important competition when we go across the Canberra. We race against the Aussie States. Apart from World Short Course, pretty much all the international championship events are all long course. Yeah. So in a nutshell, they need to do a time. And the second bullet point is they need to apply. We introduced that last year because we wanted the athletes to apply, go through the process, basically saying why they want to be on the programme, what do they, how do they feel they can contribute, what are they looking to get out of it. So and that helps us to then help them, particularly on camps where we've got coaches coming in and coaching those athletes. We'll share that information with those coaches so they can engage more with your kids on camp. Yeah, go on.
The application process, we found it a little bit stressful. There was too short of a cut-off point from the time that there was a competition and particular coach might have been away, and there was a bit of a scramble. So is there a way that, I understand you have to have a deadline, but from the qualifying of that long course meet to actually then putting that application in, I know that we had to ask one of the other coaches and he was like, well, I haven't actually seen your child swim, but he's away for 2 weeks, so.
That's a very good point. I'm pleased you raised it. I mean, the cut-off for this year, the 7th of May, so it does give people 2 or 3 weeks. Coaches should all know that date because it's all on the stuff we've sent out. But if coaches are away, just send it through and we can then follow up and get the coach to endorse it. And you're in a good position because we know you quite well. We know Tenerife has already been on, so we know we've got a sort of
Well,
past
we
history.
I think we had, as a club, we had 2 or 3 swimmers, and
Yeah.
everyone was like, "Oh, what do we do now?" Because
Yes.
the coach was away on holiday for
Yeah.
2 weeks, and we're like, "We don't want to put them in."
Okay. Yeah. Good morning.
Morning, Alastair. So if they've been on a camp previously, do they have to reapply each time?
Yes. Yeah. So this present group, it'll end at the end of April. So they were based on the program for October. Well, I think it's November to April. This one will kick off on May 24 and will go through the end of April 2022. So they have to apply every year because things might change for them, and we just want the athletes to be up to date on why they want to be on the program, and also part of the application process, like you alluded to, was the coach has to endorse it. It has happened once that the coach was not particularly happy with the athlete. With some stuff going on. The athlete wasn't turning up, wasn't really contributing, wasn't helping his teammates. So the coach, the athlete and their parents agreed, look, it's not appropriate for you right now in terms of your development. You need to do a better job in your home club before going to the next level. But the endorsement is pretty straightforward. It just allows the coach to promote and endorse and support the athlete's application. In terms of the passport, it's an Excel spreadsheet and there's a number of different tabs. Basically, the first tab is about the important dates or deadlines, what's happening across the year. The second tab is the application itself. So that includes who they are, contact details, who the coach is, the club, what times they've done to come onto the programme, why they want to be on the programme, how do they feel they can contribute to Team New Zealand, what they want to get out of it, and so on. Yeah. So it's fairly robust. We want the athletes to think. What's happened previously is athletes would do a time, we've invited them onto the camps, and when I first started I would interview the athlete and say, why are you here? And what responses were, I don't know, I think I did a time. So we're trying to connect the sort of performance and the reward, if you like, trying to tie it together. Yeah, so it's more meaningful for everybody. The third tab is what we call an IDP, which is an individual development plan. Basically, it's a glorified goal sheet. So there's 3 parts to that. So where are you? So what have you achieved? What level are you currently at? Where do you want to be? And how do you think you're going to get from A to B? So it's just a very simple tool. For the senior and target athletes, they have something very similar, quite robust. Of the people you'll see here, Lewis Clever, Zach Reed, Helena Gasson, those kind of athletes, their club is quite detailed because they're getting financial support for Platform Sport, NZ, themselves, and lots of sport for the coaches. So it's quite a robust document at that level. So we wanted to have that at the age level to start that process. So the athletes can take ownership, and ideally coaches will be better planned or better process in supporting them. Another tab is just some resources that the athletes can, they're all hyperlinked, so they could hyperlink to say drug-free sport, they've got a question on drug-free sport information, or let's say they get selected for Aussie state teams, to hyperlink there to previous results that they can have a look at, so they've got some idea what they're going to be faced with if they get selected. And the last part of the IDP is the tracking information. So there's 2 parts there. One is the testing would allow them to do in the home program. There's two very simple tests. One's a kick test and one's a stroke efficiency test. They don't take very long. Basically, they need to be doing that once or twice per every 4 months. So it's basically 4 times a year. That's really going to help us create some sort of data about, you know, how good are they with their kick, which is quite critical for their long-term development and their stroke efficiency, because it's quite obvious, but the fastest people have the best skills. So we're trying to encourage athletes who are 13, 14, 15, improve your skills, because they sometimes think they just need to work hard on their sort of, you know, the training sets. They also need to spend a lot of time improving their skills, because the best people have, the fastest people have the best skills. And the last part is a logbook. They just track what they're doing each week. It's a very simple thing. Probably take them about 2 minutes a week. Just put in some numbers. It's really more of a wellness logbook rather than how much physical training they're doing. It just allows them to track, you know, how well their training's going, not how many meters they've done, and so on. And we're trying to connect the logbook to their IDP parts, so some of the skills and projects they've got. We're trying to make it holistic. We don't want them just to come on, we want them to earn and to
About the female athletes, should they be tracking their periods as well for the purposes of using that as a tool? I know it's quite new here, but
it's not,
so far it hasn't been introduced. But
that's not information we need, but there are a lot of apps out there that you can put the information
I just
on.
noticed that overseas they're using it in their trainings as well
Yeah.
because of the energy levels.
For our purposes, it's a very simple app. That'll be enough information for us. If athletes want to go and do a more detailed tracker, that's fine. Yeah.
I just meant for the purposes of correlation with their performance.
Yes. Like I say, it's not information we actually need. But I think it's good information for you, clearly from the coach to be sharing. Okay. Any other questions? I think it's quite a lot of information to take in, but I just want to reassure you that previously they would do a time, we would say, great, you're coming on this camp. Okay, what am I doing? We change it so the onus on the coach and the athlete to do some preparatory work. Then they come on the camps or the tours and they're much more prepared. It just means the athlete's mindsets are fairly homogeneous across the group. It means they're a bit more lenient. Okay. I said I mentioned before on the Swimming New Zealand website, if you go to High Performance athlete pathways, this is the other document that the athletes really need to read. It's I think about 6 pages long, but it details all the activities, all the information about what's happening, what the age groups are, what the dates are, what the purpose of each activity is. I call it the blue document, so people know straight away what I'm talking about. It does list everything. So again, if you've not seen that, go and have a look at it. The other thing I just want to say at this point is if they do a time to come on the national age programme, it's basic. It's the activities are staggered. By that I mean, if you've got a female who's 13, does a bronze time, fantastic. That is a fantastic achievement, and that athlete will get a portion of what's available. If they're say 17 and they've done a gold time, they get a lot more. We're trying to just stagger it because we found that if the young athlete's got everything, at an early age, we're struggling to add more value later on, and after about 3 or 4 years, the athletes are getting bored because they're getting the same stuff. So we're trying to stagger it over a period of time.
Make a new goal.
Sorry?
Make a new goal for them, something further that they need to go.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. And it's, to me, it's quite fundamental, because the message to people like yourself and the coaches is think more long term. Because if we're going to be successful internationally, all the data tells us that international medals, and I'm talking about Olympics, World Championships, World Short Course Champs, Commonwealth Games and so on, are generally from people at age in their mid-20s. They're not really coming from very young teenagers. Are a few exceptions, but I've heard of somebody called Katie Ledecky. Well, she burst through when she was 15. She won Olympic gold at 15. So you do get some outliers like that, but they are quite rare. The vast majority are of those athletes in the mid-20s. So we've got to be thinking quite long term. Okay. In terms of those activities,
Sorry, Alastair. We were talking yesterday about the athlete pathway and about the potential opportunity to provide maybe like a schematic of what the athlete pathway looks like, maybe from the domestic point of view, but also from an international meet perspective as well, so that it's, because if you're looking at this, especially this document, it's quite wordy.
yes,
And we all know that people are quite visual nowadays, and there's a lot of stuff out there for people to read. Do you think, be beneficial if we could provide with that information there, but maybe put it into a real simple pathway picture?
that's good.
And I was reading that document yesterday.
Sorry?
And I was reading that document yesterday, and I found it some things like NAP or stuff like that. Like if this young swimmer of 13, 14 start reading that, what the hell is this? What I need to do? Like maybe a picture of that application or a picture of the logbook.
Yeah.
Because if they read the logbook, they will be, oh, what I need to do, I will need to write like essay, what I did the whole day or stuff like that.
Okay. So maybe a glossary and some like a schematic, graphic to just summarise things.
Yeah.
I think
For
that's great.
them, for us is okay.
Yeah.
But
And if it is on the website as a schematic flowchart, then you can have links there to
Exactly, yeah. The logbook,
or
international calendars,
Yes.
or national program application form. Yeah, I think that would be really good. We can work on that, Alastair, based on the feedback from today and yesterday as well. Yeah.
Because I know I'm probably too wordy, so it'd be nice if...
Well, it's a really comprehensive
So that's a good point.
It's an adult document.
Okay, so those activities, there's a tri-series tour which is in July, and it's something we were doing about 12, 13, 14 years ago. So we brought it back in. It's basically a week's tour. They come together, there'll be 3 teams and they're rating each other, and they'll be sort of challenged across the whole week. It'll really stretch them, really build strong teams, training together, racing. They'll be travelling from 3 cities in the Waikato and the Bay Plenty. So I know the athletes are already quite excited with that. So that's something they're looking forward to. So Tri-Series Tour, July. Aussie staying teams is end of September. It's good to see that the bubble between ourselves and Australia is starting up very soon. We're not 100% sure if we will go to Australia in September. We'll have to make a decision at some point. And a lot depends on, child, athlete welfare. Worst case scenario would be we're over there and borders get shut. It's very, very difficult. So we're very mindful of that. And it's just a very robust risk analysis. But if that doesn't go ahead, we're just looking to see the possibility of doing a virtual competition against the Australian states. Just not sure how we're going to do it because the calendar is quite busy in that time slot.
How does Swimming New Zealand work with, I'm just talking hypothetically here, but if you have children or young adults who are on the national age program in this sport code, but also in another sport code, so say they happen to be very talented and be in two sports codes, do you work with that other sport code then, or how does that work to make sure that,
we probably work more with the athlete and the parents direct and the coach to say, look, if they are, let's say, your child's been like to go to this competition and that conflicts with, say, going on a netball tour, obviously we'll be disappointed, obviously, but if it's in the best interest that your child with the netball tour, that's fine. Because what we don't want to do is to put people under pressure to decide early about where they would like to go. But obviously we're biased, we'd like them to be on the swimming pathway as long as possible. But if we help them with their journey through to a different sport, then that's fine. We accept it's going to happen. But I think that's far better than unnecessarily putting conflict there. Nobody gets anything. The athlete drops out completely.
so you do accept children into this NAP program that have several sport codes that they do?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's not all or nothing. Somebody might get picked for they said a distance camp. They might not choose to do it. That's fine. There's no okay. We'll take you out completely. It's open option. And we would.
She does too. Yeah.
We would work with you and the coach, and support you as best we can. The challenge for us, I think, is to make what we do attractive, so people go, "Oh, I want to do that," as opposed to that. And that's what we're very conscious of. So that's one of the reasons why we made quite a lot of changes, trying to make things more attractive, more aspirational, more connected, more long term.
One thing that would help making it more attractive is when you come from a regional town and most things are centred in Auckland, it becomes very expensive. And if there is any funding to help the regions, distance to come to some of these events.
Well, that's a really good point. We're very conscious that it can be Auckland centric. So that's why, for example, the tour that we're doing in July is not in Auckland and never will be. So the three sort of centres we're looking at in terms of the tour would be a rendezvous is actually at Auckland Airport because it's very easy to get to, but then we move out of Auckland. Next year we're looking at the South Island, so going to Christchurch and doing one in Canterbury, and then the following year into Wellington and doing one in the Wellington Lower Hot area. So we're trying to make sure that people that it costs a lot to keep coming up here is reduced and spread. The other thing we're trying to do is we're trying to support the regions as well and help them grow as well. I said before about the youngest age groups not getting everything and staggering it. So what our intention is, particularly those younger age groups, the support for the athletes of that performance standard, they get more support locally rather than having to come up here. So a bit of a development across the country because we can't do them justice with such a big number. It's too many athletes for us. It's great that they've done a performance standard, but we are looking to make sure there's more regional support. the lady at the back there, you're in Waikato, and there's a very, very strong, well thought out Waikato pathway for the athletes, for the coaches. I mean, it's really, really good, and I'll be working with the other regions and look at Waikato to see if they could, you know, not copy, but emulate, come up with something that works for them. Okay, so some really good questions. So keep firing those, because they're really good. So thank you for those. So in terms of what are the opportunities? So national camps, I think that's straightforward. There's a big education component on the camps and the tours. It's not just simply eating, training, sleeping. We try and keep them occupied. So we'll have some education modules, a bit like a syllabus kind of approach. So we'll either bring people in to talk to the athletes or the coaches about certain aspects of performance, nutrition, lifestyle support, strength and conditioning, race pace stuff, you know, all sorts of things. We're just going to sort of codify a little bit and present and engage with athletes.
Sorry.
Club visits, one of
Question
my.
over here.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah.
While we were talking about that, because I don't know how that works, but if they are accepted to NAP, to national program, all these tours, camps, and everything are paid by parents.
Yes,
Or
yes, it's a user pays. Yeah. I would love to have a big sponsor, and it was all, you know, all for free. And I did a similar role in Scotland nearly 20 years ago, and basically it was free the first year that I was involved. The second year we put a small limit, so it was $100. The funding model was different, you know. Unfortunately, we don't have a big budget, so it is all user pays. But if you think your child could get on, and you want to know how much it's likely to be, so you can budget ahead. Like I said before, you might not do everything. You know, you might have 2 or 3 other children that are very sporty in other codes, but if you need to know the sort of finance part, speak to a manager. So if you need to budget ahead, we can help you with that.
And I think that's why it's really good that you made the athletes to apply, because then you can tell your athlete, that's what we did with our child. We just said, like, okay, so you qualified for this, this, and this. This is the amount of money we have. You choose, and she had to go away and think really hard.
Yeah.
What was her priority, what she wanted to do, and also realize how much money actually goes into it.
Yeah.
So keep it a child.
That's good. Yeah.
and
I think that's a really good
I think
example of
I really
of
like that you
account-
did
you know,
that. That
ownership
it
of
was,
the athlete.
that she had to do it, then she had to sit down, and I wrote to her like, okay, so these are the dates, because she qualified for another sport, and she had to make the conscious decision what was more important to her, where she thought she would get out the most of it, and what she was happy to sacrifice in order to go on the camp, and she enjoyed both of them really very much.
I think that's really good. I think that's very smart parenting, and I think that's helping the child in terms of long-term stuff. They appreciate what they're getting, and they have to prioritise, which I think is good. So there'll be educational modules on the camp, and we will. There is downtime, obviously, across each day, but we like to fill the time to take advantage of everything. Club visits, myself and Gary, we do go out to clubs. Fortunately, we can't get to every club. And I think at some point we will have to prioritise and say, right, we can only go to these clubs. Clubs can still request, and we will look to try and get there. But it is quite difficult. But they are very useful. if you know I am coming to your club and you do want to see myself or Gary, just let us know. We'd be really keen to sit down with you and support you and help you. Yeah, okay. So that leads on to the next thing. Try Sue's tour, that's that July activity they mentioned in the Waikato Bay Plenty, international teams. So there's quite a lot going on. So what are expectations on the athletes? And I think the first two, I think, apply whether they get on or don't. They should, obviously, I think, enjoy what they're doing. And I've tried very hard. I used to say to athletes, did you go fast enough? Did you do it properly? Nowadays, I'm saying, are you enjoying? Did you have fun with that race? You know, did you enjoy the process? So to me, it's really, really important that they enjoy. As we all know, if people enjoy what they're doing, they generally keep doing it. Yeah. Not enjoying it does sort of crash quite quickly. So, and it seems counterintuitive in a way, but our big focus on counts and everything else is to make sure the athletes really, really enjoy, have lots of fun, in a very positive way. We know they're going to get challenged. We know they're going to be put under a little bit of stress, whether it's physically or trying to stay awake all the way through the day and so on. But I really want them to enjoy. And I think we do a good job there. I think there's always room for improvement. And that's why I after the distance camp, I'm trying to speak to all the parents, yourself included, just touch base, give some feedback, and make sure that we're hitting the mark there. They've got to enjoy it, otherwise they're going to tail off. We mentioned the IDP, so that's the individual development plan. So they need to do that in partnership with the coach. And that's wrapped up with that passport, which is the Excel document I mentioned before. Last year, we've never done it before, but we had a Zoom. Did any of you come to the last year's Zoom?
I think my daughter did.
Sorry?
I think my daughter did.
Yeah, it was for the athletes, coaches and parents.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's basically, I just do a 30-minute presentation just to go through the main stuff. Any questions? It gets live streamed, not live streamed, it gets video so people can look at it later on. And it's just a way of making sure everybody's up to speed, any questions you might have. What I'm going to do this year is have a separate one for coaches to help, to encourage the coaches to be all ready and switched on, etc. Then the counts, but like we said, don't do all accounts. You can be selective. It's just based on your own circumstances. The last point is, attend the appropriate swim meets as obviously in liaison with the coach. Yeah. I'm trying to stress to the coach and the athletes, you've got to have a plan when you're racing. Don't just dive in, do 4 laps and get out. It's got to be meaningful. It's got to be a building block in terms of that overall journey. So those are some expectations. Do the logbook, make sure it's up to date, and they'll need to send that through. The dates are all in there at the end of each 4-month block. So the 12 months is broken into 3 periods, and it's aligned with the new calendar. If you're not sure what the blocks are, it's May to August is what we call domestic cycle or block 1. So that's through from May to National Short Course. Next one is September to the end of December, and we'll be looking for them. Again, it's optional. Coaches will work it out. We'll look for the athletes to perform and go fast in December, and then the last block will be January through to April. So there's really 3 blocks per season. Having said that, coaches can do that, or they could do something different. So up to them. But in terms of logbook, just send them through at the end of each 4-month block. National test we covered. Passport, that's just the log, the big document they just send through that has the logbook stuff in it. And that's what I think is key, and it's something we stress on all the camps. Make sure you've got really good behaviours. So we always talk to them about performance behaviour. So things like being on time, be very coachable, be positive, help your teammates, you know, support your coach, you know, all that kind of stuff. Because it's that stuff that's got to carry them through. You know. Right, I'm just trying to catch up with my papers here. Okay, so almost done. So in terms of the content, the coach development stuff is towards, it's absolutely super critical. We have some fantastic coaches in New Zealand. I'm actually blown away how many really good coaches we've got. So a key part of what we're doing is to support the coaches, you know, help them improve, maybe challenge them a little bit on why they're doing certain things, and you know, that sort of coach sort of New Zealand relationship is much better than, say, you know, 5 years ago. So I think one thing I'm keen to be seen as an extension of the coaches support team. So our resource for support advice and so on. So coach development is really important. Basically, if your coach is better, they'll do a better job, and you know, your child and your club improves. I've just listed a few things in terms of some of the content. I think we pretty much covered all that. The last one at the bottom there, one thing we haven't been very good at is supporting, encouraging, you know, sort of year 12, year 13 students transitioning beyond high school. And there's been a bit of a vacuum. So it's a piece of work for us to get ready for that. But basically, we want to support the athletes when they're going through high school. What are your options? You know, what do you want to do? You know, some of the athletes will go offshore, some will go to Australia, quite a few will go to America on scholarships, and that's fantastic. Certainly helps you guys, I think, with you know, budgets and paying for things. We'd obviously love to have more athletes considering the options here in New Zealand, but again, we need to make it more attractive. We need the clubs and the coaches stepping up and having better links with universities and polytechnics and so on.
Of those athletes that decide to go and do the American route, how many of them actually end up in a Team New Zealand team going to the Olympics or the Com Games? Because a lot of them don't,
to be honest, it's a fairly low strike rate. It's a bit hit and miss. I mean, some go there and they come back and they're a faster and a more strong athlete and so on. But the strike rate isn't.
It's not a guaranteed avenue for success, basically.
Because the university's wanting them for the team,
exactly,
not for the personal development of the swimmer.
Yeah. So obviously, when an athlete's in a New Zealand club and part of a New Zealand program, the New Zealand are looking after the New Zealand athlete as a person. Whereas, as you just said, when you know you've got the Florida Gators, they want that person. They will give them their event because it fits in with their program, rather than saying, well, you're great at this, so let's put you in here. It is a fairly low strike rate, and I was talking to one of our board members yesterday. His son is over in the US in a program at the moment, and you know, he just said, it's not New Zealand dead. You know, I think if you're a swimmer who is not wanting to be high performance and you can get a scholarship and go over and get your academics paid for through your sport, fantastic. But if you're wanting to be a high performance swimmer that's not necessarily the answer. I mean, we all know that Lauren went over to the US, she went over to Cal, and then she came back and she did really well. So, but was that why she did really well? Probably not. She probably would have done really well anyway, because it's Lauren. So yeah, it's not necessarily the recipe for success, but I think, you know, for some people it's fantastic if you can get your education paid for, and, you know, it's obviously different opportunities around the world, but depends what your goals are. Yeah.
And you have to be aware that they want you because of
Absolutely.
the funding,
Yeah.
the funding, because when they perform,
Yeah.
they get the funding from the state.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and that is the reason why they want to be fastest speeds.
Yeah.
But so for the people who do choose to go to America, are they still part of your national program?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In a smaller way and more in a distant way.
Yes.
They're obviously, because they're at university, they're too off the national age program, but they can be still, if they're fast enough, they can still be part of that senior targeted program. So Gary would, for example, would be in regular contact with the athlete or their coach in whatever college they're in.
Yeah, so we've got athletes who are overseas now who are part of the targeted athlete program. So we've got Ali Galli's over there, she's in the US, and she's a targeted athlete. And then we've got people in Australia as well, again targeted athletes. So for Gary and for myself, it's just a different method of communication, you know. And then we have to build a relationship with the coaches as well, which can be mutually beneficial. So, yeah.
Yeah, and it can be a little bit of a grey area because you don't know what you're getting yourself into. I listened to a podcast the other day which was about athlete development, very interesting, and the person that was presenting, they had gone to America on a rowing scholarship, but when they arrived there, the coach that had recruited her had gone, and there was nobody at that university she'd ever talked to, so she really struggled. They weren't in effect ready for her. But I mean, there are some success stories, and the other way. I think a challenge for us, is to up our game domestically. So that's something we're working on. We've got some ideas, some things in the pipeline that will come through the next sort of couple of years. But one thing we'll do on the camps is, you know, this education module will do a presentation on what their options are, and I'll be completely above board. So my intention is, for example, I would get in touch with all the coaches and I would ask, send me information about your program if you feel that you could support senior athletes post-high school with their education. So what are your links with universities? Can you offer any scholarships? Can you help with accommodation or coaching fees? Just package it, but just go through the athletes and be a bit more informed. I think the idea would be we'd have more athletes swimming beyond high school. But there are a lot of advantages to going to America because the college and the swim team, it's hand in glove. Here, there could be a very good university, a very good club, but still the timetabling overlaps and they can't get to all the workouts and so on.
So you're looking at working closer with New Zealand universities for that purpose?
Yes, yeah. So we're doing a bunch of work in that space. And for us, it's approach we've been taking for the last sort of 6 months, 12 months. High Performance Sport and they've just released their new strategy, and that does dovetail quite nicely with our longer term view and more senior athletes, in the pool, literally, while I focus at the lower end all the time.
What about the athletes that might not want to go to university? Do you have any support for them?
That's a good question. At the minute, not much. I think if they were at that high standard that Gary is in, perhaps working with if they're employed, we work with their employer. If athletes come to us and say, I don't want to go to university, but I want to work in, say, business, we might have some contacts, or we might go through High Performance Sport NZ. They may have some network that we can tap into. Is there anything you can add to that, Amanda? People that leave high school, don't want to go to uni.
Yeah.
Is there anything we can do in
Yeah,
that space?
absolutely. We've got athlete life advisors who work with the real targeted athletes, and basically their role is to get to know the person really well, their goals and aspirations, and figure out, well, is university the right way for you? If not, well, what does that look like? So Bradley Ashby, for instance, he's doing a mechanics apprenticeship, and that was set up via our channels. So it could be something similar to that. Some athletes might want to put study on hold for a little while. Some athletes might want to do more like your national, like your vocational qualifications. So there's lots of different avenues. I think there's a real recognition out there in general that academics not necessarily the best way to go for everybody.
Okay, good question, thank you. So yeah, I think planning ahead's critical. Trying to plan ahead, map it out, and support people. There's a big long list of all the things that they can tap into with their international standards. There's a lot going on. Some of the events are not on this year because of COVID-19. Next year, 2022, is going to be, we're going to be flat out because a lot of the events have been moved into 2022. So it's going to be a challenge. We're very busy. And in terms of those young athletes, there's something called Commonwealth Youth Games. That's every 2 years. And a bit like your question about in Auckland, Commonwealth Youth Games is spread around the Commonwealth. They avoid the big countries like, England, Australia, Canada. I can't remember where they've all been. I remember Isle of Man was one, which is in the Irish Sea. The one that's got pushed back, that was in, was it Barbados or yeah?
Trinidad and Tobago.
So somewhere in the Caribbean. So they tend to be those smaller nations, and that's for, I think, 18 under. Is that right, Amanda?
Yeah.
14 to 18, so
yeah,
that's
right.
The two big competitions that we use to really measure how well we're doing with our national age program athletes is World Juniors down here and Junior Pan-Pacs, because they're really very tough competitions, and they're the sort of the hardest international meets for athletes 17, 18 and younger. So our goal is to be successful there, because we feel that's a good marker for athletes moving to the next level with world champs and Olympics. Okay. Another long list of other international events. And the one at the bottom there, International Swimming League. Have you all heard of the International Swimming League? Yeah. So, a new thing, a bit of a disruptor in the sort of international calendar. Very well presented, very well thought out, very exciting for athletes. And that's, the sport's moving into that sort of gladiatorial teams versus teams kind of approach. And in fact, we're going to pinch some of the ideas, without the budge obviously, some of the ideas, some of the good stuff they did, particularly around point scoring and that sort of stuff with the Tri-Series Tour. I just wanted to show you that there's a lot going on in that space to make it attractive for people to, keep training, etc. So almost done. So I just wanted to kind of share with you, what is our approach. I've just listed a few there. To me, it's really about working with you people. It's a partnership. We can't do everything. nor do we want to do everything. We want to make sure we work with parents, the coaches and the athletes. So, it's a team approach to get the best possible outcome. Do have a big push at the minute on skill development, and keep banging on the drum with coaches, make sure the athletes are more skilled, just simple things like finishes, getting the heads down early, hit the wall hard, etc. Turns, particularly in the short course things. So really pushing that quite hard in terms of coaches coaching that skill on a regular basis with the athletes. So that's just sort of flavour. Just want to really emphasise we don't know everything, and perhaps we don't always get it right, but our intention is to put things right if we're not quite there, and we want to work with new people to make sure that it's the best it can be. Okay. So I mentioned before about the website. So that's the process. If you haven't seen the information, that's how you get to it. There are my contact details. If you're here with sort of your para hat on, then it'd be Cameron and Leslie for support in that space. But we do work together. Just on that, I should have perhaps mentioned before, para and able-bodied, we are together. It's been two separate entities for a while, but we are merging very soon. So, for example, the January camp we did this year, that was the first ever integrated camp with para and the AB athletes, and that worked really well. So we had some very good feedback on that. Athletes mix really well together. It'll be an integrated team on the Tri-Series tour, and the same with Aussie State teams. So that's something I'm really excited about. Okay, that's it from me. Thank you so much for listening through. If you've got any questions or you want to catch the end, please do. So thank you very much for listening.
I have one question.
Yeah, go for it.
Going back to standards.
Sorry?
Going back to the swimming standards.
The time standards.
Time standards,
Yes.
yeah, for LEP. Do the swimmer, how many of those swimmers need? For example, if the swimmer has in IAM, for example, he has gold time, but on others he has bronze time. I'm comparing like here with Auckland's level 2 and level 1 standards. For level 1 you need to have 1 IM and 200 meter any stroke, other 200 meter. Do you have something like that, or how it goes?
I'm not sure that exactly with the para times, because they've got their own times, but for the national age program,
For national age.
if you get one time, that gets
Only
you
one in one stroke,
Yeah.
one distance.
I'd be encouraging the coach and the athletes shoot for the gold time, because
Yes,
that opens a lot of doors. If you get on a bronze, that's a fantastic achievement, because we know the times are best. When we look at other nations, we haven't put it up there. Having said that, we've already got 19 athletes who've done a national age program time this week. Mainly girls. I think it's 17 actually. 17, I think. So I think it's 12 females and 5 males at the minute. We'll get a few more age groups. The national age program, do one time. That will be enough.
That's what I was asking, because my son, they changed timing for level 1 last year, and he had few of them. Mostly IM, because IM is his thing. But then when they changed, he had all of IMs, even 100, 200, and 400. But those 100 ones he didn't swim for some time and didn't have. So I need to ask them, is he staying in level 1 or he's going back to level 2? So that's why I'm asking.
I'm not sure about the power setup, but certainly for the age program, one time will be sufficient.
Alastair, you mentioned there before, yes, those times are pretty tough. So in terms of, I guess, retention, we know that there's a big dropout at that 12 to 14 age group, but then we also know that, like you say, there's a vacuum at that kind of 17, 18, 19 age group.
Yeah.
And you say yourself that those times are hard. So what's Swimming New Zealand's thinking, or how are they going to tackle retention and engagement if they keep pushing the times so hard that these athletes go to all the meets, they do their training, they're good kids, they've got aspirations within swimming, they've got aspirations academically or trades or whatever it is, but the door just keeps getting closed on them because those times just keep getting pushed and pushed and pushed.
Well, that's a really good question, and I'm really pleased you've asked that question. Well, first of all, it's the national age programme. To be absolutely frank, is a small part of what they're doing across the EU. When you work it out, if they do a camp in January, maybe the distance count, maybe go to junior pan packs, it comes about 5 or 6% of the whole EU. So we're really encouraging to make sure you maximise all that 95, 94% of what they're doing, and make sure you enjoy the whole thing. I mean, we all know that the athletes won't improve the same amount every year. Our role is to support as best we can, and if they do a time, great, opens a few doors. If they do a time one year and not the next, we still want to be engaged, and we still want to be supporting the athletes when we can. In terms of the club visits, for example, I think it will be important and reassuring the athletes, look, it's not a straight line. You might improve, say, 5 seconds one year. Next year you might not improve at all. It's likely to happen because the line is not linear. But I think holistically the message I think we're trying to get out there is enjoy what you do, work hard, embrace those performance behaviours, have a long-term plan. So if you do get a setback, it's only a temporary setback. But yeah, I think it's a really hard one for us to be physically supporting people. But I think it's that sort of holistic approach. Just to reassure people that if they need support, they reach out.
And I guess just also someone brought it up earlier as well, a lot of things are centred in Auckland, and when you come from the far reaches of New Zealand, because there's a lot of other New Zealand outside Auckland,
yes,
and we look at the swim calendar that's coming up for these athletes, everything's in Auckland. You can't, I'm from Gisborne, so it was a 7-hour drive to get here, and that's going to be done many, many times, but also just and so in the likes of that, I can't see yourself coming down to do a club visit down in Gisborne because it's really just not feasible. And then again, it's that support that I think for our outlying regions in Auckland, there's everything there for all these athletes, and they can drive an hour across somewhere to get to another really good pool. We don't have the facilities, we're far away, it costs a whole heap of money all the time, so it really, I guess for those athletes, I'm speaking on behalf of the tons of athletes who are all on the cusp, they all love their swimming, but at some point it just gets too much. So it's that kind of retention, engagement, enjoyment.
Yeah, I mean, I can't get to everywhere, but I know if Gisborne got in touch and said, we'd love you to come out and we're perhaps struggling with ABC, can you come in and help and at least give us some direction or support, or can you pinpoint what we need to do more of? I can certainly consider it. I'd love to come out. I haven't been to Gisborne, I have been to Napier. But I think it's still a new thing for us because we haven't really got a track record of going out to the regions, particularly when we had a centralised model with the national, in effect, the national team training here in Auckland, all the resources, all that, because it's a much flatter structure. We can get out.
Is it
more than we've
possible
ever
perhaps
done
to
before.
use new technology? Like,
Sorry?
I'm saying perhaps there's an opportunity here. You were talking about technology before. I mean, there is no reason why Zooms could work as well. You actually don't need to go to perhaps all the outliers, but you could actually Zoom with them on a regular basis, and that will engage what you're talking about, correct? The regions, the athletes, and not only the Aucklanders. I mean, just an idea, but I mean, that could be, because of course it might not be feasible from a cost point of view.
Or combine it with talks like this, because I'm sure you'll get high attendance in the regions. Not everyone can come here, and a lot more people might find it useful.
Yeah, it's a really good point, and it's definitely on the plan to have camps not all in Auckland. They never used to be all in Auckland. They used to be down in Martin, they'd be in Rotorua. The problem that we've had is that we've had COVID, and it's easy to hold it here because we've got the lodge next door, we've got everything set up. So that's the only reason that it's been like that for a couple of years. But we used to hold camps all over the place. I mean, I know that before we've spent a week in Martin, for goodness sake. It's in the middle of nowhere, it's a tiny place, but the athletes do enjoy getting around and about, and we are really cognizant of athletes having to pay and travel, etc. So what we did a couple of years ago, we actually offered flight subsidies. So if you were coming from Wellington, for instance, you'd have like a 200 flight subsidy. If you're coming from the South Island, you'd have a $300 flight subsidy. So we made it so that if you were coming from Auckland, you paid the full cost of the camp, but people got reductions if you were coming out of town. So we do recognise it, but I'm glad you brought it up because it brings it, front of mind when we're thinking about the camps for next January. Yeah.
Good question. Thank you very much.
Alastair, I just wanted to make a comment on the times, the qualification times, and the focus on doing it on a certain time and how it's challenging for ageing up athletes. So if there's any sort of consideration of having a sort of like a calendar year opportunity to do those times, I think is something that should be considered, because there's plenty of evidence of athletes not keeping going because they age up at the wrong time, and so it's a huge jump. And I think it's great. I think one piece of feedback would be some consideration into the period of time the athletes have got to do it through those junior years, because of that aging up in the developmental phases.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And one thing I'm doing here, and I will do it at NAGS, is seeing what those birthdays are for the athletes to do the times. Are we missing athletes because of the way we've structured it? Try to be equitable and say there's the 3 entry points across the year.
That's a new one, is it?
Sorry?
That's in the new
Yeah,
one.
so
okay,
so
that's good.
So
I didn't realise that.
those times.
So what are those 3 entry points? So obviously NAGS, not
so
course.
NZ Champs and NAGS. Yeah. The next one is at the end of August, so that would take into National Short Course. What I said, I think I said before you came in.
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't.
is that,
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
no worries, but
That's good to hear.
we're not publishing the times for short course.
Why is that? It's hard to know what you're hitting if you don't know what to hit. It's hard to hit it if you don't know what times you have to hit.
I
Do
guess
you
it would
convert
be
it
around
yourself?
Converted times.
Do you convert it yourself and you go, okay, if it's 2 blah blah blah.
You could probably work it. You could probably work it out from last year, because we know the short course is important, but we don't want to overvalue the short course nationals. To us it's a stepping stone. Long course is 95% of international stuff. So what the athletes do to hit a performance on long course.
And what's the 3rd entry point after that?
So the next one is in December, because the calendar's changed, so there's basically the three blocks. So we're encouraging coaches to emphasise December, help the athletes go past.
And what is that? Is that a swim meet?
Yeah, sorry, yeah, I should have said. So the regional champs. So some of the regional champs will be in December. If you're from Wellington, their champs in January, but the coaches are trying to persuade the administrators to move it to December. I think it will happen. Some athletes will go abroad to Victoria State Long Course age group champs. Some will go to Queensland in December. So
They can get times there too, and that will be accepted.
That's really good. I didn't realise that.
I know if an athlete does a time somewhere, the coach is probably going to contact me that day and say, by the way, you know, so and so's done this time. I'll be like, fantastic, and we would, you know, lot to get the athlete involved ASAP.
So what was the thinking of, because often I don't know heaps about swimming to be honest, but I understand that most swim meets are the age you are on the day when you start swimming.
Yes.
Whereas this year that has changed for long course snags and now it's 30th of April. So what was the thinking behind that? Why change it for long course snags and not for any other competitions?
Yeah, I mean that's a good question, and we spent a lot of time on this particular
Because
thing.
my daughter, for example, she's now have to race snags 12 years old because her birthday is end of April, whereas normally she wouldn't be allowed to race snags 12-year-old, correct? She would race it
So
the following
is she
year.
13 this year?
Yeah,
and
she's
yeah.
turning 13 on the last day of
Yeah.
next.
Okay.
So I mean, obviously this changed for her. We hadn't even
Yeah.
anticipated her
So
doing next.
so
this
because
year.
she's 13 at the end of April,
Yeah.
then she can do next. Yeah. Well,
But it obviously went from being probably the best timing. She had the best birthday, correct? Because she was literally going to be almost 14 when she raced it, whereas now she's going to be 12 racing it. And with these times, like you're saying, they're pretty hard, correct?
But with
Yeah.
the change to that,
But-
that's
Yes.
a really
Yeah.
great
That is good,
initiative.
isn't it?
Yeah.
It's really
But those times, that's just part of it.
Yeah.
Not everybody's going to do the times, you know. But I think the most important thing is the journey. They enjoy it and all
Yeah.
that stuff which we covered. But just on the age on April 30. So must have been about a couple of years ago, probably maybe 2.5 years ago. There was a working group set up, which was administrators. I was actually on the working group, but as a coach when I was coaching in Rotorua. Administrators, some of the key staff in the events team here, some in New Zealand, and I think about 6 or 7 coaches across the country.
Yeah.
So we looked at the whole calendar because there were a lot of issues with the domestic calendar because it wasn't really aligned to international calendar, and there were really some strange stuff going on. So big questionnaires going out to coaches and to the regions. Working group came back, absorbed it all. The usual process of finding information, people's opinions. So with the calendar, we felt that the 3-season kind of approach was the way to go. And if we did that, we couldn't have a situation where people would either have a birthday and either get to both or miss out completely. And that was going to affect about 3% of all the athletes, maybe 4%. I can't remember the exact number. It was a small number.
Not just that. In previous years, NAGS is never on the same date, so you have different dates. And we had in previous years swimmers who were swimming 2 years in a row as a 14-year-old and then as a 16-year-old.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because of that.
Yeah.
So that was, as Dale explained to me, that was the reason. So every year is 30th of April. So every year they will swim in different age group.
Yeah, because
Which makes sense, correct?
we need
It
to
makes
put-
complete sense.
Yeah,
I
we
mean-
need to put nags in the school holidays. So if the school
Of
holidays
course.
change, we have to change our dates. And we
Yes.
don't. Yeah.
And it
Because we
will
want-
affect
yeah.
this
Yeah, of
year's
course, then you can
swimmers,
swim
but
several
not every
Yeah.
next year.
Yeah, which makes sense, correct.
I mean, I know it's quite a few people have raised your point and questioned it.
Well, it doesn't matter as much, Greg, because now you have more points than one entry point. It was probably more of a problem before, correct?
Yeah. And I think we've tried to fix the date, but also provide more opportunities so it sort of balances out.
Makes sense.
Having said all that, no system's perfect, but we try. I think try and get the one that's that fits as best we can. But like I said before, if I'm tracking all the athletes here, and who's done those times, where's their birthday, but I'm also going to look at the ones who don't achieve it, who are close, where their birthdays. So, if it's obvious we've got, say, 10 athletes, all missing out because their birthday's here, then we need to perhaps look at that and see what we can do. But I think, like I say, I think it's a fair system. They'll have another chance, another 2 chances.
I have to say I'm pretty impressed with the program you have set up for Swim in New Zealand, and I think the changes you've done, not that I've really followed it much to be fair, but it actually looks like a really good program and a good pathway, because not every sport code has these type of pathways as clearly defined, so I think you've done a good job.
Well, that's really good feedback, and thank you for that. And but it makes it more complicated for us because we've sliced it different ways. But we want to do the best we can for the athletes.
Can I just ask about the standards, because it is a long course. Has there been overlooked maybe some regions that might not have access to any 50-meter pools? As you know, the Rotorras are being renovated. We only had, like my daughter had one training session in a 50-meter pool, and in addition, because she's a long-distance swimmer, not many swim meets actually offer her the opportunity to race 1500. So she might only get a chance to race it once or twice, whereas someone who is racing 50s or 100s can do it in many different meets. So can there be some?
Well, that's another really
and I know
good
that
question.
it's a very specific question towards my child, and probably more towards the general questions, but that's my only issue, that some of us don't have easy access to 50-meter pool, and then our child might be racing the competitions that they might have once in a season opportunity or twice, unless we start traveling to every single competition outside, and then it becomes like.
I've got to applaud you. Well, these are really good questions, so thank you so much. I think the best way to answer that is we're not there yet, but I don't think some of the regions have really cottoned on to the new calendar and what it can offer. So again,
could you adjust it to maybe, because you're not going to have many athletes that are maybe targeting the long distance. Could there be a group where you have, like, if somebody's interested in a long distance, to contact us, because we are aware there might not be as many opportunities, and then work closer with them, maybe break it down a little bit, because it's just, when I look at it in like the hundreds, and I know there are hard times, but in a way your child has many more opportunities to get those times. Like we even tried as much as when there was a meet hosted in Waikato to say, can our child just race it just to see where she is at? Not have it even recorded, but it was sort of turned down. And I understand it's yet to put another hit on, but it's,
So to me, you're asking 2 questions. So the first one, I think is really good, and I think some of the regions haven't quite cottoned on to the opportunities in the new calendar. So, we're looking to work more with them to structure the competitions that are aligned. Because some competitions, I think, are a little out of date. The event matrix is probably not suitable, etc. My thinking is early in that 4-month block, it should be this kind of competition. Later on, it might be different competition, separation between the 13s and the younger kids perhaps. But the regional clubs would decide all that. But I think what they need to do a better job with is program the swim meets. So and then lead from, say, a club meet to a regional meet to a zonal meet to a national meet, and people can then step through them. It's very disjointed, and we've got short course meets, just before long course championships and vice versa. So there's got to be more sense of it. And your second point, I think, around the distance athletes, you're right, they don't get the same number of opportunities and they don't get the same number of quality opportunities. And I think that's an area I'd like to explore a bit more with the coaches on that distance camp and make sure that their needs are catered for, more appropriately. But yeah, we've got a bit of work to do to support those athletes. Okay, I think that's done. Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was very
Please
good.
come and see me anytime at this week or any other swim meet. So thanks again.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Nice meeting you.
Oh, if you want a handout, I've got